Hello everyone, my username is Rivet, and while I'm not exactly a pro Bazaar player, as you can see I've sunk well over 250 hours in this very addictive game. You can see my trophy breakdown just in case you want some proof of my skill. I've always been a huge fan of roguelikes, card games, and even drafting games. I've been mentoring two of my friends, and I thought to myself, man, this game's amazing, but the learning curve is just downright brutal. I thought about the amount of time I could have saved from running my head into the wall if only I had somebody telling me what to do instead of just going through my usual trial and error experiments. And this is basically what this video is about. This video isn't a tutorial on how to play the game for the first time. I'm assuming you have a basic understanding of the mechanics and how the actual game works. Rather, this video is for those struggling to get past 2 or 3 wins. But it can also help those who maybe have never basked in the glorious feeling of a perfect run. So, let's get started with my very first point. Your first big dilemma when starting up a run of the Bazaar is your selection screen. You could think of the 3 selections up to this point as a spectrum. Fun versus efficiency. Economy is your efficient, always good, very safe option, but clearly it's just not a very fun choice. Think of gold skill as the other side of the spectrum. It can be really fun, but at the same time it's just not a very safe choice. Firstly, you don't have any money, and you might sometimes just not get a good skill, or be able to force the build you're looking for. Yeah, plus 40 damage is nice and all for your katana, but what happens if you can't find a weapon? And finally, we have my favorite option, and honestly, what I consider to be the best of the 3. Both in terms of still having fun, while not completely having to spin a lottery wheel, and that's enchanted items. There are some insane items that you can pull off, and even if you don't find that really crazy item, worst case you end up with something undesirable, you could always pick an item with a really useful enchant like icy or shiny and simply hold on to it until you find a way to transform it, either via the shop vendor or catalysts with Mac. Oftentimes, and more so when you're playing your first and your second day, you'll often be incentivized by the notion of free stuff. And because the Bazaar is such an interesting and well-made roguelike, it meets one of the core tenets of what I think all good roguelikes should have, which is that there's never normally one optimal play. However, generally speaking, shops are your best friend. The rule of thumb that you can always apply is that if your build isn't finalized or perfect, then you should always be popping into a shop and seeing if you could pick something up for your board or even for your stash. This is even more important in the early game, where having a full board of random crap is almost always better than just one really cool silver item that you've tried to buff through a combination of curio items, skills, or even random loot. There are, of course, always some exceptions to this rule, but they're rather straightforward. You obviously don't want to shop if you don't have any money, but do remember that your stash should always be taken into account as part of your overall net worth. Just because you don't have any actual gold doesn't mean you're always walking into a shop without any expendable income. Regarding the question of when to reroll or not to, generally you always want to reroll on shops where you're interested in the items offered and that cost 2 gold to reroll. The dilemma comes for the shops where the reroll prices are higher than 4 or more gold. I would say that the earlier the game is, the far less likely you should reroll, and I would almost always never reroll for 4 gold on the first 3 to 4 days. For another general rule of thumb, generic vendors that offer things like small, medium, non-weapon, weapon, or even JJ will always have 2 gold rerolls, while specialized vendors will go from 4 to up to 8 gold for rerolls, depending on their rarity and the types of items that they offer. There are some cases, however, where you might not want to shop till you drop, and that leads me to point number 3. Like the title says, do not sleep on the chocolate. You could also apply this to any other forms of HP gain. An often unsung hero of the Bazaar is actually the chocolate contest, specifically the 5 gold option, which gives you exactly 100 HP. This option on day 2 or day 3 could make the difference between a victory and a loss. Just make sure you have the space before you sink your precious money into those sugary snacks. You can also think of trying to hunt for a knee brace from Curio as a similar option, albeit far more random and riskier, as Curio asks you for 4 gold to reroll. The third option is one that often comes up and, depending on your level, could actually be quite the amazing investment. And here's the kicker. It's free, and you don't even need inventory space. It's called Snack Time. Anything past 100 HP is always a nice grab, unless the other option is far better. Early chocolates are so strong that sometimes just 400 or 500 HP can be the difference between winning or losing a fight. Here are some quick examples of how me having more HP than my opponent means that I win my fights. Given the choice between a random shop and some other pointless choice that doesn't really do anything for my build, I'll almost always opt for HP. The final point in this segment is Finn's Big Bite. This option on day 1 is almost always an auto pick for me. The 5 regen is ridiculous for your day 1 fight, and it's generally a very strong pick in days 2 and 3. There are some options in the Bazaar that are just simply too good to pass up. I'll be listing 5 of my favorites, and in the order of most auto pick to least auto pick. Once again, depending on your circumstances. Starting with number 1, free enchants. Nothing is stronger than enchanting an item, because oftentimes it'll just double, if not triple, or even quadruple its effectiveness. Free loot. I love this option. Your chances of finding a feather are very high. And honestly, I think feathers are the best loot in the game. But worst case, XP vials are also nice in a pinch. Pearl's dig site. This might be a personal bias of mine, but the amount of wacky builds and things you shouldn't be allowed to do based on hero item restrictions are completely thrown out of the window thanks to Pearl. The sheer exhilaration of clicking reroll over and over just to see what potential janky garbage or broken combo piece that's normally not available to your hero is just far too enjoyable for me. Hattie is my 4th pick, sort of in the similar vein of Pearl's dig site, but it's always good value. Sometimes he might give you a free gold skill, which is nuts, and other times you'll get gold, but you'll never walk away disappointed. My 5th pick for auto pick options are kind of a tie. Thieves Guild, Bounty Agents, Deadly Monster, Bazaar Con, Shrouded Figure, because all of these kind of lead me to point number 5. XP is king. XP, but specifically leveling up and having a level advantage on your opponent, is sometimes downright unfair. Level ups will give you skills, way more HP, and even more board slots for the first 3 levels. And at level 10, you'll also get a free enchantment. Being 1 level above your opponent is fantastic, and being 2 or more will feel like you're just taking candy from a baby. This point is quite straightforward, and ultimately one of my only gripes with the game regarding choice, and that's the fact that you're always going to want to grab XP 9 times out of 10. As you're playing a run of the Bazaar, you'll notice that either one of 2 things are happening. You're either sailing smoothly, winning most if not all of your fights, or you're getting your ass handed to you and you're on the brink of saying hello to Futura. And this will usually depend on knowing your strengths. Learn what items are doing the heavy lifting in your build. Some items really shine early, while others are absolute monsters, given the right amount of investment or even time or upgrades. One tool that can often help you identify which item is pulling its weight is with the handy recap function. After a battle, either with a monster or a ghost, you can simply click this button and see how much damage, healing, burn, or any other stat your items are doing. There are some exceptions like always, but generally speaking, if one of your items is doing 4,000 damage while the rest are doing 400 to 500, chances are that's where your strength lies. Another tool in identifying your strengths is obviously identifying items that are naturally quite strong or overpowered. This is only something that can really be done through either watching lots of Bazaar runs or playing lots of Bazaar runs. There's way too many items to list, but the more you'll play, the faster you'll learn to identify what's good and generally what's not. My seventh point is to become that backpacker NPC from the Pokemon games. You know the guy I'm talking about. Most newer players will have a tendency to want to clear their stash and leave it spotless with your bank full of gold, while others might struggle with that hoarder lifestyle and start biting their nails in frustration every time they enter into a shop. As a general rule of thumb, don't sell anything unless you A, obviously need the money to buy something else, B, need to make room for something new, or C, have an item that generates money or consumables every day. Now, most of you might be thinking, well, I already know all of this. But my final point, and I think the point that might help, is why hold over selling? There's actually two reasons. The first and the most obvious reason is that some merchants will actually pay you a higher premium for certain items. Barkin will actually buy your chocolates back for 1 gold apiece, making that juicy 100 HP practically free. Midrun will buy your chunky, weird medium items for 2 extra gold and help you generate that extra money you might need to find other upgrades. But there is another point to holding things, and that's actually flexibility. One part of improving your overall win rate is holding onto really powerful items that you might not have the board to set up just yet. But if you do come across just 2 or 3 more items, it'll easily let you transition into another potentially even stronger build. A perfect example of this could be seen in the item Proboscis. While to newer players, at first glance it might seem like total garbage, it's actually an item I would almost never sell unless I had to because of the insane potential that it can give you in a slow-oriented build. You should always be running a full stash. Take advantage of every single slot. Just remember to keep some slots open for your daily generators. The 8th point that I want to make is to boost or not to boost. This is often a question you might be asking yourself as you start playing this game more and more. My guidelines for boosting is, firstly, always pick HP upgrades if you're at Jules Cafe, and only boost if you feel your build cannot simply benefit from any other option. Boosts are quite underrated, as the goal of the game is to simply win 10 times. If your build is already in a very good to even perfect state, then boosting your HP or shield is simply increasing your odds of winning your current fight, which is honestly what the entire point of the game is all about. Gauge what are the odds of a shop giving you what you need versus the boost itself. Even a potential shop might not be worth taking a boost. Try to calculate the odds of what you'll actually find. Is there a large shop and a boost, and you only have 1 large item? How important is this large item to your build? How noticeable is the upgrade? Securing wins is the bread and butter of improving your success in this game. If you're only 1 or 2 wins away from a 10 winner, then what difference does hunting some random item do for you if all it's going to do is go away in 1 or 2 more days? How do you get into a state where boosts are actually your friend and not your enemy? It's quite simple. You need to get more early wins. Early wins, or the lack thereof, are often a sign of a sinking ship or a truly seaworthy vessel. If you're on day 5 or 6 and you've only won once, chances are you're in for a rough ride. You don't have to win every single day, and there are some extreme cases of heroes that don't really have the strength to always win the early days, like Pygmalion. But make every effort you can to get those day 1 or 2 wins. Buy those extra crap items for 2 gold and fill out your board. Get that random catfish that can poison, and always grab regen items, as they're very strong early on. The last point I want to make is accept that anything past silver should be considered as a win. Sure, there are some runs where you've managed to lock in the perfect items with the perfect synergies, you fought all the right monsters and even gotten all the right skills. But that's just not the majority of your runs in the Bazaar. It's easy to get obsessed with those gold or even diamond runs and see the 3 or 6 chests pop up on the end of your screen. But like any other competitive game, you want to measure your skill over the course of 10 or even 100 runs, not individually. The amount of powerful 9-win runs that I've lost to some random pig with 30,000 HP, or a Mac with a diamond lifesteal femur with 8 slow items and even 8 slow enchants are just way too many to count. The Bazaar is a crazy place. Anyways, thank you for taking the time to watch to the end of the video. I hope that these tips help you out with your future runs. If you want to help me out, you could always do so by either liking or sharing the video. Best of luck out there.